All right, moving into factoring trinomials, which is section 7-4. Factoring trinomials is going to be one of the most important algebraic skills you learn. I think it follows you into a lot of other math subjects, and really when you get down to it, it's finding out numbers that add to a certain number and the same two numbers multiplying to another number. So as we go through this, I want you to kind of keep those two ideas in your head. So really factoring is just the opposite of multiplying. So another word that we use for factoring, which we found out from the last section, is dividing. Okay, so let's just do some practice for multiplying, and we can use any of the methods that you learned. You can use FOIL, box, vertical, double distributive, any of those. Okay, just because I don't use it very often, let's go ahead and use double distributive. So 2x plus 3, and we'll multiply each of those by 3x plus 2. So we'll get 6x squared plus 4x and 9x plus 6. So when I total those up, I will get 6x squared plus 13x plus 6. So when you're factoring, you're going from your trinomial and you're trying to get back to what your original factors were. Okay? So there's a new method that I found this year called the Australian method, which is kind of interesting. And when we're going to do a really fun factoring activity in class before we even start practicing with these. And we're going to start with really simple factors that will look something like this, like x squared plus 7x plus 10. And what I need you to remember is that your AC number, those numbers are always going to multiply to that AC number. So in really simple ones where this A value is 1, these are the simple ones to factor. So your AC value is essentially your C value, and your B value is there. So you need to find two numbers in this case that add to 7 and that also multiply to 10. So in this case you would get x plus 5 and x plus 2. Okay, 5 plus 2 is 7. 5 times 2 is 10. So I want you to kind of think of that. We're going to do a lot of really simple ones in class, and that will help you with that. But for this example, we're going to use the Australian method, which is kind of new to me, but I kind of like it. So we are going to use 6x squared plus 11x minus 10 equals 0. And we are going to multiply our A and our C values, which would be negative 60, and we're going to get our B value there. So we need to find two numbers that multiply to negative 60 that add up to 11. So what you're going to do with Australian method is you're going to make a fraction out of all of that. So you're going to start with 6x and 6x. That's your A value and your variable. Your A variable here, and your variable, which is x in this case. And then your A value is also going to go downstairs. Once you figure out these two numbers, and there's a couple methods that you can do that. So let's think of all the numbers that would multiply to negative 60. So you could have 10 and negative 6, negative 10 and positive 6. You could have 20 and negative 3. You could have negative 20 and positive 3. You could have 15 and negative 4, negative 15 and positive 4. You could have 30 and negative 2, and negative 30 and positive 2. There's probably more there. Oh, you could have 12 and negative 5, and you could have negative 12 and positive 5. Lots of possibilities. When you're looking for that, you're looking for the one that has a sum of 11. So that's going to be 15 and negative 4. So what you're going to do is you're going to have 6x, you're going to add that 15 on, and then 6x minus 15 all over 6. Now what I need you to do is to factor numbers out of that. So out of a 6 and a 15, I can take out a 3, and that leaves me with 2x plus 5. And out of 6 and 15, oh, sorry, there should be a 4 right there. So 15 minus 4 is 11. 15 times negative 4 is negative 60. Sorry about that. And then out of 6 and negative 4, I can take out a 2, and I get 3x minus 2. Now the interesting thing is, look what happened. Well, if I have 3, these are all being multiplied together on the top. So 3 times 2 is 6, which is going to cancel with that 6 on the bottom. So my factors are going to be 2x plus 5 and 3x minus 2. And I can go ahead and check that and make sure that I end up with what I started with up there. So 2x times 3x is 6x squared. 5 times negative 2 is going to give us our last term, which is negative 10. And our middle term is going to be made up of these 2x terms. So I have 5 times 3x, which is 15x. 2x times negative 2 is negative 4x. So 15 minus 4 is 11. And that checks out. So those are our good factors. We'll do a little bit more practice with that in class. So another method of factoring is called X factor. Some people call it diamond method. I don't, because there's no diamond there, so it kind of frustrates me that it's called diamond method, so I call it X factor instead. So what you're going to do is, let's use 12x squared plus 5x minus 2. So I'm going to draw an X, and you're going to kind of use the same method that you did in the Australian method. Your AC value is going to go up here, and your B value is going to go down here. You're going to do a horizontal line across the middle, and you're going to write your A value and your variable on each of those. Now you need to find two numbers that add up to 5 that multiply to negative 24. So that's going to be 8 and negative 3. The biggest thing to remember here, so we need to get two numbers that multiply to negative 24 that add up to 5. Okay? So again, think of all of your multiples of factors of 24, and when it's negative, you're going to think about two numbers that have a difference of this value right here. So I know that 2 and 24 would be 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6, and I think that's it. So in between, so I know one has to be positive and one has to be negative because this is a negative 24. So now I need to find the separation of 5 in between my two numbers. Well, 1 and 24 has a difference of 23. That's too much. 2 and 12 has a difference of 10. Still too much. 3 and 8 have a difference of 5. So now it's just a case excuse me, of figuring out which one's going to be positive and which one's going to be negative. So if I had done negative 3 and positive 8, that gives me 5, which is what I'm looking for. If I had done 3 and negative 8, that would have given me negative 5, which is not what my middle term is. So this is what you've got to be careful of when you are factoring, especially when there's a negative present. Okay? Once you figure out what those two numbers are, now you're just going to simplify. So 4 goes into 12 and 8. And if you simplify down to a 1, you need to have that 1 down here. So this would be 3x over 2. And 3 goes into 12, negative 3 goes into 12. Actually, we'll do the 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4x and negative 1. So your factors would be 3x plus 2 and 4x minus 1. If you stack your factors on top of each other, it's actually really easy to check your work and make sure that you factored correctly. So if you go right down top to bottom, 3x times 4x is 12x squared. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Then if you check your diagonals, you would have 8x and negative 3x. Negative 3x plus 8x is 5x, which is our middle term. Okay, let's do one more of those. So we have 9x squared plus 12x plus 4. So again, my A value and my variable, A value and my variable, AC up top, B down below. 9 times 4 is 36, and my middle term is 12. So I need to find two numbers that multiply to 36 that add up to 12. I'm going to show you in class a way to kind of get your factors pretty easily, even when they don't come to you right away. So that's going to be 6 and 6. 6 plus 6 is 12. 6 times 6 is 36. So in this case, we actually have the same factor twice, and that reduces to 3x over 2. Sorry about that. So your factors are going to be 3x plus 2 and 3x plus 2. The other way you could write that would be 3x plus 2 squared, because it's the same factor being multiplied by itself. Okay. So the last method you have for factoring, which is kind of my preferred method, but it's going to depend on you, is called BFDs. And that is an acronym for borrow, factor, divide, and simplify. Okay. So for our example, let's use 15x squared plus 14x minus 8. So the first thing I'm going to do is borrow that a and give it to c. So I'm still multiplying my a to c, so I get negative 120, and then my b value is 14. So once I do that, I have x squared plus 14x minus 120. This makes my factoring easier because now my a value is just a 1. Makes it much simpler. So now I'm going to factor, and 120, well, I've got 24 and 5, 12 and 10, 6 and 20, and because this is negative, I'm looking for, remember that subtraction means a difference, I'm looking for a difference in between my factors of 14. So that's going to be 6 and 20. My larger number is going to follow the sign of this middle term. So I need to have 20 and negative 6. And then x and x is always going to be my front term because x times x is x squared. So double check that. 20 minus 6 is 14. 20 times negative 6 is negative 120. You always want to check that your two numbers add to the middle and multiply to the third term. Okay, so now once you borrow something, you always need to give it back. So at the very beginning, we borrowed this 15 and gave it to the 8. So now that 15 needs to come back and be divided back out. We need to undo what we did. Okay? So here's an important step. Once you do that, you must simplify these fractions here. Okay? So that's a really important step. Really important step. You want to star that. Because if you don't do that, your factors are not going to be correct. So you need to have 5 goes into 20 and 15, so you get x plus 4/3 and x minus 2/5. Okay? So if your fractions reduce to a whole number, then you stop. That's one of your factors. If not, swing the denominator out in front of the variable. Okay? So for example, on this one, we have x plus 4/3 and x minus 2/5. Well, neither one of those simplify to a whole number. So all I'm going to do is swing that number, that denominator, right in front of the x. So I get 3x plus 4 and 5x minus 2. And again, let's double check that our answer is correct. 3x times 5x is 15x squared. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. Now it's just a case of checking these. So 4 times 5 is 20. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. So 20 minus 6 is 14, and that's my middle term, so that checks. Okay. So I'm going to do 2 more in BFDs. So just kind of follow the steps with me, and then the more you do it, the more it'll make sense. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to write my BFDs right down the side, is borrow. So I get x squared plus 7x. I borrowed the 12 and gave it to the negative 10, so I have negative 120. It's kind of funny how that worked out twice. Now I'm going to factor. And let's see. I already had these up here. So here's one of the things. If you divide one of your factors by a certain number and multiply the other factor by the same number, you can find another set that works. So for example, 24 divided by 3 is 8. 5 times 3 is 15. Well, they have a difference of 7 in between, and they still multiply to 120. So that's going to be x plus 15 and x minus 8. I know a lot of this is really overwhelming to you right now. Please just get all your notes down, and I promise you we'll be working on this in class. Now you have to divide that 12 back out. Simplify your fractions. So 3 goes into 12 and 15. That reduces to 5/4. 4 goes into 8 and 12. That reduces to 2/3. Neither one of those are whole numbers, so we're going to swing those denominators out, and we get 4x plus 5 and 3x minus 2. Okay. Let's do one more. So we have 3x squared plus 17x minus 6. We're going to borrow that across. X squared plus 17x minus 18. 18 times 1 is 18, and it also has a difference in between the two factors of 17. My larger number is going to have that same sign as the middle term. So 18 minus 1 is 17. 18 times negative 1 is negative 18. Now I've got to give back that 3. Now this reduces to a whole number. 18 divided by 3 is 6. That's going to be one of my factors. The other one does not reduce to a whole number, so you're going to just swing that out to the front. Okay. Trust me, we'll have plenty of practice. This is one of the things I really like to work on and make it really easy for you. So if these notes seemed a bit overwhelming, just let that feeling go, and we'll work on a lot more in class. Thanks.